Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage Representative Sarah McBride.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming out on this Saturday before Thanksgiving for this afternoon's conversation. I am so grateful to be here at Old Town Hall in Wilmington with the Delaware Historical Society. I'm so grateful to be here with Majority Democrats, an organization that I am so proud to be a part of alongside 31 other elected officials at the federal, state, and local level, elected officials around the country who are working to build a supermajority to win everywhere and to deliver for everyone. And most importantly, I'm grateful to be here with all of you. When I was running for this position in 2024, I said that my campaign was a conversation with Delawareans. And today we are continuing that conversation. I also said when I was running that if elected, I would work with anyone who was willing to work with me to deliver for Delaware, but I would stand up to anyone in order to defend Delaware. And over the last 11 months, I have had the professional privilege of a lifetime in serving what is objectively, we all know, the greatest state in the history of the Union in Congress. And despite the dysfunction and the toxicity and chaos in Washington, I'm proud to say that I've been able to break through the gridlock and work with people across the aisle to deliver for our state. That's why I was the first freshman to introduce legislation this Congress, bipartisan legislation, protecting consumers, Delawareans who've been struggling with debt from predatory practices. Over the last 11 months, I'm proud to have introduced more bipartisan legislation than any other freshman on issues ranging from protecting our farmers and lowering the cost of groceries for consumers, bills to expand family leave for workers across this country, legislation to uphold our values internationally and support small businesses here at home. With individual Delawareans, our office has been able to bring back nearly $4 million owed to constituents from the federal government in the form of veterans benefits, tax refunds, and Social Security checks. Working with our congressional delegation, we've been able to secure millions of dollars in new investments to Delaware to bring good-paying jobs to our state, to build affordable housing, and to improve services for some of our most vulnerable neighbors. And when the Trump administration announced that they were going to cut funding for a program that supports small and medium-sized manufacturing businesses here in Delaware and across the country, I led an effort in Congress that got the administration to reverse course, protecting a program that has fostered hundreds of jobs in this state and tens of millions of dollars in economic activity. We've been able to get things done. We've been able to get things done. But I don't have to tell you all that the last 11 months have also required a lot of defense. I have entered a very different Congress and a very different Washington than the one I hoped to enter. And I have had a front row seat to the cruelty, to the chaos, and to the corruption of this administration. The lawlessness, the recklessness, the broken promises time and time again from this president. He ran and won the last election, promising Americans that he would focus on lowering the cost of living for this country. But since taking office, essentially every single one of his actions and priorities have betrayed that promise. Time and time again, it has been promises made and promises broken. Because of his reckless and chaotic tariff policies, prices on nearly everything have gone up. Groceries, my favorite item, coffee, the cost of housing. Essentially, everything is more expensive because of this president. And this coming Black Friday, the prices that you will see are going to look like just normal prices every other year because of the Trump tariff tax. And then, of course, across this country, Americans are already seeing skyrocketing costs when it comes to affording health care. Over the course of the last several months, Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress have inserted a $1 trillion ticking time bomb into the center of the American healthcare system. And it is now going off. Right now, tens of thousands of Delawareans are logging onto healthcare.gov, and they are seeing their premiums increase 100, 200, 300%. A family of 4 in Middletown could pay $10,000 more in premiums because congressional Republicans are hell-bent on cutting people's health care. Indeed, the only thing that congressional Republicans seem more loyal to than Donald Trump is cutting the health care of the American people. That is what they have spent the last 11 months doing. Because of the expiration of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, millions will see their premiums increase. But it doesn't stop there. We have the largest cut to Medicaid in American history on the horizon. 15 million Americans will lose coverage when those cuts go into effect. Tens of thousands of people will lose their lives in preventable deaths because of these cuts to health care. But what happens when you take 15 million people and trash their health coverage? It's not that they never get care. It's that they get care when they're sicker and the care is more expensive. They go to the emergency room, and that care has to be paid for. And so who pays for it if you're uncovered? Everyone else. And that's what these cuts mean for those who don't lose their coverage. And for these cash-strapped healthcare clinics and doctors' offices and hospitals in rural communities, when you remove $1 trillion from the American healthcare system, what do you think happens to them? They cut services and in some cases will have to close their doors, leaving everyone who relies on those healthcare facilities having to drive longer, having to take more time off work, having to wait longer to get care. Donald Trump loves to own things and stick his name onto them. Well, he now owns the American healthcare system. It is Trump Care. And what does Trump Care mean? Tens of millions of people losing coverage and everyone else having to pay more and wait longer to get care. I ran for office because of my experience as a caregiver to my husband, Andy, during his battle with cancer. I ran for office because I do not believe in the wealthiest, most developed nation on earth. The ability to get the care that you need to live and thrive should be a matter of luck. I believe it should be the law of the land. And so long as you provide me the privilege of representing you in Congress, yesterday, today, tomorrow, next week, next year, for however long I have air in my lungs and breath in my body, I will fight to guarantee affordable, quality health care for every single person in this country. We often hear that the cruelty is the point, but it's even more than that. This cruelty that they're inflicting on the American people, it is the currency of their corruption. Because in the last election, Donald Trump created an unholy alliance with billionaire donors. He said, "You fund my campaign and facilitate my consolidation of power, and I will pay you off with massive tax breaks." That's what they did with that big, ugly bill. But in order to just partially pay for those tax cuts, they used the health care and food assistance for the American people as a piggy bank to line the pockets of the uber wealthy. And what little time that they have left, not cutting the health care of the American people, not raising prices on groceries and housing, what little time they have left, Donald Trump is spending on bathrooms and ballrooms. He's spending what little time left renovating the White House bathroom off the Lincoln bedroom. He's spending what little time he has left gilding the Oval Office and destroying the East Wing. And he's spending what little time left fomenting culture wars, trying to pick on the least powerful in our society in order to divide us and misdirect our attention from what the powerful are currently doing. That is a strategy as old as politics itself. But I'm also here not just to sound the alarm, but to share with you something that I have learned over the last several years serving in the Delaware State Senate, running for Congress, and now having the privilege every single day that I am back here in Delaware and not in Washington, D.C. And if you see a picture of me, you know I'm here because I have a huge smile on my face. I spend whatever time I have here traveling up and down Delaware, going to red areas and blue areas and purple areas, talking to Delawareans who are Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. And I have good news to share with you all. And that is, we are not as divided as the algorithms make it seem. I know right now, when you turn on cable news, when you open your social media, it can feel like not only is politics so toxic that it can no longer deliver for people, but that we are so divided as a people that politics and persuasion is pointless. That we are therefore in an existential battle for this country, not just against politicians who want to undermine our freedom and our economic security, but also an existential struggle with one another. And I can tell you that it doesn't have to be that way, and it is not that way. We can tap people's better angels if we allow ourselves to see them. If we allow ourselves to be in proximity with people who, yes, agree with us, but also people who disagree with us. I am here to tell you that most people are good and decent people. And yes, we have real disagreements. But as someone who gets to travel across the state and talk to people who disagree with me on politics, about politics, regardless of how they voted in the last election, I have seen that we have far more in common than what social media and our politics leads us to believe. It is still possible to build a supermajority in this country of people across geography and across ideology in defense of our country, our values, our freedoms, and in defense of working people. It is possible to build that coalition. That's why I am so proud to be part of this organization. Because it understands that if everything is truly on the line, then we need all the help that we can get. If everything is truly on the line in this moment, which I believe it is, then I have a message to anyone across the state and around this country. And that is, if you believe working people need a fair deal and you believe freedom is good, then welcome to our cause. Welcome to our coalition. It is possible because what I have seen over the last year since getting elected is that the real divide in our country and our politics is not so much Republican and Democrat, liberal or conservative. It's between builders and destroyers. Destroyers, they succeed in a culture of cynicism. They exploit it for their own gain. They want to destroy our government and sell it for parts. They want to destroy our attention span and mine what little remains for advertising dollars. They want to destroy housing and healthcare so that they can consolidate power by doling out the scraps. They want to destroy jobs and the American worker by unleashing unregulated technology that leaves the rich richer and everyone else poorer. They want to destroy our sense of confidence so we give up on change, and they want to destroy our sense of commonality so we give up on one another. I get it. I get it. Things are not working. Too many people are being left behind in this moment. But those destroyers, they want to destroy everything but their own wealth and power so that when everything else is destroyed, they can go raid America's estate sale for themselves. We can destroy in this moment. Or we can do the harder thing, and that is to build. We can build an America where everyone knows that they belong, where everyone has a fair shake. We can build the homes of the future so that home ownership is within reach for people. We can build the healthcare system that truly delivers quality healthcare to every single person who needs it. We can be truly pro-family by building a cradle-through-career support system with paid family and medical leave nationwide and universal childcare and strong public schools so that it becomes affordable once again to actually start a family. We can build an economy for the future that protects workers and guarantees that the new prosperity unleashed by new technologies is shared by the many and not the few. It is easy to destroy. It is a lot harder to build, but it is worth it. And as we enter 2026, many of you know that we'll be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country. A moment where people put their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line to build a new kind of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the greatness of our country lies in the fact that every single successive generation has met the moment to build new policies, to build new structures, to build new institutions, to meet the needs of the people, to deepen our sense of freedom, to expand opportunity to those who have too long been cast to the shadows and the margins of society. That is the greatness of this country, and that is the story of this country. We're here in a space that is almost as old as the Republic itself. And every single day that I enter the floor of the United States House of Representatives as your member of Congress, I think about all of the history that has occurred within that space. The history that is heavy in the air. Because when you enter that space, you realize that that is the chamber that Congress moved in 1857, just before the Civil War. That is the place where they passed the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment to abolish slavery and guarantee equal protection to all Americans. That is the space where they built Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. The chairs we sit in are the chairs that my predecessors sat in to pass the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And when you step into the shoes of those previous generations who faced similar questions, similar odds, and quite frankly, odds much greater than the ones we're facing now, and you realize that they had every reason to give up hope. They could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. But they imagined something better. They persevered, they summoned their hope, they found the light, they built something new, and they changed the world. And I have to believe that with all of our freedoms at our disposal and all of the new technologies all of the support that we have in this moment that they dreamed of and fought for and delivered. Yes, those are under attack. Yes, progress is 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and we may be in a step back. But I have to believe that if we summon even a fraction of the hope and courage and imagination of those generations, then we can turn this moment into what a friend of mine from Florida called a slingshot moment, where yes, we are pulled backwards, but the tension and pressure of being pulled backwards ultimately propels us to destinations that we've not yet been. So thank you all very much. It's an honor to be with you today, and I look forward to answering whatever questions you have. Don't be shy. Hold on, we've got a mic for you.
Thanks for being here for us. We appreciate you. What, with all that's going on the attacks on the Department of Education, what can you, as a member of Congress, promise us or give us as something to look forward to in the area of hope?
As I mentioned before, this administration is trying to dismantle government. They're trying to prove that government can't work by making it not work. And across federal agencies, they are trying to decimate them in pursuit of that goal. And ultimately, like I said, to try to sell those departments for parts to the highest bidder, or in some cases, the lowest bidder who's just sucked up to the president most recently. About 50 years ago, in the aftermath of the Civil Rights Act, with the shadow of Brown versus Board, our federal government decided that we needed an agency that was dedicated to protecting the rights of students and educators across every background, across every race, in every corner of this country. We decided that we were going to have a department that was going to be dedicated to helping states grapple with the costs of educating children, especially children with disabilities. That's why the Department of Education was created, to protect the rights of students and educators and to guarantee that our schools have the resources that they need. I do not believe that we will better protect the rights of students.
Exactly what's wrong with her, Richard? Camdy, that nobody needs to listen to her? What exactly is wrong with what she's saying?
Or guarantee that our educators have the resources that they need to educate all students regardless of background or ability by dismantling the department that for 50 years has been dedicated to that mission. I've joined with my colleagues in opposition to the administration's actions. Many of these actions—
Try listening to what she says instead of worrying about whether she has a deep voice or not. As you can hear, I have a deep voice as well.
I believe are illegal. And working with our attorneys general, and I gotta say, Kathy Jennings here in Delaware has done an amazing job standing up and taking this administration to court. Working with my colleagues and attorneys general to push back on this administration's illegal dismantling of not only the Department of Education, but we're seeing it with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The department that is going to see the most significant cut
Exactly,
next to the
Sassy,
State
exactly.
Department
Hi, Sassy.
is HUD. I don't know how we're going to build affordable housing if we're defunding by 50% the department that helps to foster what limited affordable housing we already have. But if they want to dismantle these departments, they have to come to Congress, and we are not going to let them. It's also why we need to make sure we have a majority in the next Congress so that we have all of the levers at our disposal to push back against this administration and truly hold them accountable. I hear a lot about people loving the way some of the blue state governors are pushing back. If you want congressional Democrats to be able to push back in the same way that blue state governors have pushed back, then we need a majority in Congress. And I believe we're going to get there. I think the election results 2 weeks ago show that the public sees what's going on and they don't like it. They want a federal government that is solving problems, not creating more problems. They want a federal government that's lowering costs rather than increasing them. And yes, they want a federal government that is a partner to the states and local districts in building a public education system in every zip code that serves and meets the needs of every child. And I will continue to fight for that majority. I will continue to fight for the Department of Education, the funding and the protections that it provides, and against this illegal effort by the administration to dismantle it. So thank you. Start over here, and then we'll come back over here.
Continuing with the Department of Education, the announcement yesterday from Linda McMahon that she's eliminating the status of professional from so many classes of professionals.
Yeah.
There's a 30-day comment period. What else can we do to get that reversed?
Well, I saw this yesterday. Obviously, I encourage people to submit comments. They should hear from the American people. Those records are important. I anticipate that there will be court challenges to that effort. And this is part of an effort that they have been doing across the federal government since the day they got into office, which is to strip the civil service protections for public servants, to leave them vulnerable to mass firings so that they can put in place their own cronies in those positions or just eliminate the positions entirely. And people have to understand what happens when these federal positions that are meant to serve the public good are either eliminated or turn into political patronage positions. And that is, people get left behind and they become tools for corruption. You know, when we talk about Project 2025 and the rollback of the clock on our progress as a country, I think the closest analogy that we have in American history to this moment is the Reconstruction period. It's the Gilded Age. It's a time of significant cultural regression, a moment where the federal government was overrun with corruption through the spoils system, a period of time when new technologies were revolutionizing the economy, but in a way that sacrificed the well-being, the economic security, the safety, the health of workers, while making the rich very rich, increasing the economic divide. And this is part of that. This gutting of the federal workforce and protections is part of that effort. And they're doing it in the Department of Education, but they're doing it elsewhere. And while we've certainly got to push back in the courts, while we have to sound the alarm so people understand and connect the dots when this happens, this isn't some abstract bureaucracy. This is the power of the federal government that they are illegally seizing to increase their power and to line the pockets of the wealthy. We need to make that case to the American people, but like I said before, we've got to get a majority in 2026. The reality is, on all of these things, there is no easy lever. There is no easy button. The greatest lever that we have at our disposal in this moment is public opinion. Yes, we have an opportunity to push back on some of the worst excesses in the courts. Yes, as we've seen in Congress, there are instances with these slim majorities where we can maybe convince 1, 2, or 3 Republicans to stand up to this administration and demand some kind of transparency and accountability, but it's fleeting. It's all too rare. The reality is, in this moment, there's not going to be some politician or some group that comes in and saves everything. We are the ones that are going to have to fight back with our voices, with our votes, protests and marches, because that is the only way to truly stop an authoritarian wannabe. That is the only way in this moment that we can effectively pull the emergency brake on this administration. And I know that that's not always comforting. that there's not a lever for us to pull or an easy button in every instance. There is going to be real harm in this moment. We aren't going to be able to stop every bit of harm. But we can do all we can to mitigate it. We can fight like hell to stop it. And we can do the hard work of building that coalition we are going to need, because it can't just be places like Delaware and New York and California where we win. We're going to have to win in rural areas. We're going to have to win in places like Nebraska. We're going to have to win in states like North Dakota and Texas and Florida. If we are going to have the majority in the House and the Senate that we need to not only push back on this administration, hold it accountable, pass good things and dare them to veto it, but then hopefully come 2029, when we have a Democratic president in the White House, to actually deliver for people. Because I believe in this moment that so much of Trumpism is fueled by a crisis of hope. It's fueled by people giving up on government as a force for good, politics as a means for progress. Because when you give up on government as a force for good and politics as a means for progress, it leaves people angry. And for some of those people who are angry, they become hopeless. They opt out of the system entirely. And others, they grow angry and a strong man comes in and says, I alone can fix it. I can consolidate power and do all that you want. If we are going to inoculate this country to Trumpism, we are going to actually have to deliver. And in this system of government, that means winning everywhere. That means all of us being willing to have conversations with people who agree with us and people who disagree with us. And so what I would say on all of these questions, on all of these specific questions, there's not going to be a simple answer. There's not going to be a straightforward answer, but the strategy is the same in this moment. And that is, all of us have to have the courage not just to preach to our choir, but to grow our congregation, to actually engage with people who didn't vote the same way that we did in the last election. And the good news is that power is in our hands, and we can exercise that courage if we're willing to do so. So thank you. Over here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I am a big supporter of you, and I appreciate you being here. And I also read every day Heather Koch Richardson. She is a historian, but also she recaptures everything that's going on in Washington, breaks it down to where I can understand it. It's just very informative, and I believe it is real news. Anyways, it was reported, this is about our president. He is going to, and he made a deal with the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed Salman, to sell fighter jets, the F-35s, okay? So he made a deal, and our past presidents, to my understanding, refused to do this because of the intel that is on these planes that could be leased to other countries, that China, for example, that we don't want them to have. And also, he talked about having a TAR Air Force facility in Idaho. Are these true? And this is in Idaho. This is in the middle of the United States. To bring these in the middle of our country, how does that hurt our defense and our intel? And does he have the power to do that? It doesn't have to go through Congress to do these.
So
Thank you.
thank you very much for that question. And the powers of the commander-in-chief are pretty wide in terms of the United States military and particular sales, although there are opportunities for Congress to do resolutions of disapproval to try to stop sales. And evaluating any kind of sale and learning more about the one that you've just brought up with Saudi Arabia, it's important for Congress to do its due diligence. I would like to see the Armed Services Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, which I'm on in the House, hold hearings on this topic to understand exactly what are the parameters of this deal and what are the risks to our national security. Because one of the things that I think has been abundantly clear for this entire administration is that they're not particularly careful when it comes to intelligence and national security. We are all very aware of Signalgate. I mean, we have perhaps the most unqualified in every way person leading the Department of Defense right now in this moment. I'm glad this administration is so passionate about honoring that chosen name that they have decided to use for the department. But time and time again, we have deeply unserious people in positions of deep consequence, of serious consequence. People who have demonstrated that they put their own interests, in the case of this president and his family, their own convenience in the case of texting state secrets on Signal, all ahead of the national interests and our national security. That certainly doesn't sound America first to me. And this is precisely the kind of role that Congress should take. So one of the things that we get when we are members of Congress is we get security briefings on major issues. These are top secret, and it is often the Committee of Jurisdiction that asks for it. Unfortunately, because Republicans in Congress are in the chairs of those relevant committees, they rarely ask for full, unvarnished briefings for us. It's the power of the majority. And this administration has stonewalled every step of the way, whether it's the terrible intelligence decisions that they have made individually, or for that matter, the arguably illegal and certainly reckless decisions to bomb boats. These extrajudicial killings that we are seeing, they have stonewalled congressional oversight every step of the way, and Republicans in Congress have been all too eager to bend over for this president. And, you know, as we celebrate 250 years of this country, when the founders drafted the Constitution, we hear this term co-equal branches of government. Jamie Raskin, is a colleague of mine, would yell at me for saying that word because he says co-equal is not actually a word. We're actually not equal branches of government. There is a reason why Congress is listed in Article 1. It is the preeminent branch of Congress. And 250 years in, we are seeing an effort by this administration to consolidate power in the executive and to render Congress essentially useless, to create what they have in Russia with the Duma, a rubber stamp institution. And one of the most important oversight responsibilities that Congress has is in the context of national security and intelligence. And I believe that has to be at the top of our agenda when we win power in 2026, because lives are quite literally on the line. So thank you. Right here.
The Trump administration has decided to open up great areas of Alaska, the Pacific, the Gulf of whatever they want to call it. And I don't even know about the East Coast, a part of Florida, into more oil and gas drilling, while solar becomes the greatest, cheapest energy source now in the planet. And China is building enough solar every day to equal about 3 coal-fired plants. Can we do something, about that? But also about, there are certain regulations and rules which probably inhibit solar development in this country. I would think that if you say something is, oh, we're going to reduce regulations, you might find partners on the other side for that idea. I don't know about tariffs as well on solar panels coming into this country because we're not the major producer. So if we think about reducing regulations in order to responsibly grow solar, is there a move there?
So first of all, on the first part of your question, when I was a state senator, the oath of office that we take prescribed by the state constitution is to protect the rights of future generations to share the rich, natural, and historic heritage of Delaware. And while that is not part of the federal constitution's oath of office, it's one that I feel very deeply. That we have a responsibility as elected officials to be stewards of our land stewards, of our air stewards, of our water stewards of this planet, because it's the only one we have. And this administration, time and time again, has sought to exploit the natural resources of this country, not to the benefit of the many, but to the benefit of the few. And that's what we're seeing right now. Because if this administration, to your point, was actually interested in lowering the cost of energy, they would have a truly all of the above energy approach that invests in wind and solar and other forms of new technologies and new energy sources that we know other countries right now are investing in, rightfully so. And I find this to be one of the best examples of the hypocrisy of this administration. Because not only are they stopping the production of renewable energy sources that do have the potential to increase our energy supply and lower costs for Americans, not only are they stopping new ones, in many cases they're trying to stop ones that are already in construction, that are already unfolding. Why is that? It's because they are doing the bidding of their donors in the oil and gas industry who don't want to see renewable energy, even if it is at the expense of the American people and our energy bills. To your point around reducing regulation, there should be, and I think there is, bipartisan opportunities to reduce those regulations to guarantee that we are producing the green jobs of the future with green projects that not only pay great wages, but also help to reduce the cost of energy for Americans across this country. I think whether it's energy or housing, there is an opportunity to forge a bipartisan path forward in building in both of those areas what this country needs to bring down what I think are some of the most burdensome costs that people are facing, people's energy bills right now, and of course the cost of housing. I will also add that I know at the local level in Delaware, there's a big debate going on right now about data centers. And we know that these are facilities talking about sort of scraping the natural resources of an area that will jack up the cost of electricity for people around them, and also in many cases take so much water that people don't have much left. And one of the provisions that I was really proud to pass a couple of months ago unanimously through the House of Representatives is a provision that will result in millions of dollars of new investment here in Delaware with a Delaware-based employer who's forging innovative technologies and research that will dramatically reduce the need of these data centers for water and electricity to operate. Because to the degree that these data centers are going to be a reality, we need to make sure, one, that we're protecting local communities, but two, guaranteeing that when they operate, they aren't putting the strain on the water supply and the grid that those facilities currently are putting on them. And so I'm proud that this provision passed. I'm going to continue to work it to make sure that it gets through and gets to the president's desk where it would be signed in a larger bill. But that part is also very much on my mind, that we've got to grapple with the data center issue as well as making sure we've got more supply of renewable energy. So thank you. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, hi. My name is Sam. I live here in Wilmington. I saw an interview recently that former Vice President Harris gave, and she was talking about the political divide in this country and all the difficulty around that. And she said something to the effect that we're not working from the same information.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think about a lot because I really think that algorithmic media is something that is accelerating the divide and pushing people further and further away from each other. What would you say to the idea of proposing either legislation or potentially eventually a constitutional amendment to the effect that no public disseminator of information, whether it's a media company or a social media platform or even a government agency, can throttle or tailor or promote or in any way target information in the public space on the basis of who is receiving it? Other than, with perhaps a carve out for, adult content to minors and things like that. But basically, establishing the principle that in the public marketplace of ideas, anyone can say anything so long as they say it to everyone equally. And if not that, what would your what would your proposed solution be to this information silo problem?
So I think it's a great question, and it's one that's very much top of mind, and I sort of alluded to it in my opening comments. Because the information divide that we exist in is fundamentally unsustainable for a democracy, right? You have essentially two sets of facts. Honestly, at this point, we've got different sets of facts for every single person in this country. And to the degree that it generally falls within two camps, you've got two teams on the field. One team is playing football and one team is playing baseball. They're going to run into each other. They're going to hit one another. That's not going to work. We're going to get hurt. And that's the reality that social media has forged. It's also given us not only an information environment that is inaccurate and untruthful, but it's also given us this false perception of who we are as a country. Because if you use social media, you probably fall into two camps. You're either a doom poster or a doom scroller. The doom posters probably amount to like 10% of the people online, but it's 100% of the content that we're seeing. It's the loudest, it's the most extreme, it's the most outrageous. And so it gives all of us this false perception about what Americans think and believe. It gives us this false perception that everyone is either super far left or super far right, and that therefore there's no point to conversation because we're so divided that we could not possibly convince one another or hear one another. And to what I was saying before, one of the joys of being in this office is I get to get offline and actually talk to people in real life, and I get to talk to them about politics. And you realize that while social media can impact real life, it's not representative of it. And at this moment, that false perception of who we are, it's driven by both the algorithms as designed and manipulated by those that control them, and I will say, manipulated by foreign adversaries who want to turn us against one another. 80 years ago, the greatest generation was called to defeat tyranny by putting their lives on the line on two continents in defense of our country and in defense of our values. Our generation's basically being asked right now just to not fall prey to the manipulation that we are experiencing by powerful people who control the social media platforms and foreign adversaries who are manipulating them to turn us against one another, to deepen the divides in this country, to have us give up on each other. And our call in this moment is a lot less sacrifice than putting our lives on the line. It's quite literally just touching grass. It's having conversations with one another in real life, offline, about things that matter. I know that's uncomfortable, but we've got to do it. But to your point, it's not just a cultural solution to this, because these platforms are of a power that we have never seen before in our politics. And the algorithm can be manipulated by those in positions of power, right? I mean, we've seen it in real time on Twitter, now X. And I think that it demands government regulation, because this is a product that we are using. At a minimum, we should understand what we're using. At a minimum, there should be requirements around transparency. We can protect trade secrets, we can protect the individual companies, but we have to have transparency so that we understand what we are actually engaging with, at a minimum. Two, I think we have to recognize that these platforms are addictive, these platforms are dangerous, and if adults want to use them, fine, but we've got to figure out how to make sure that formative young minds are not being destroyed because they live on social media. At a minimum, that means getting phones out of schools. And but to your particular suggestion, I'm open. I am a strong believer in free speech. And I think what you're calling for is an environment where there is truly free speech, not a situation where one individual or a handful of individuals get to decide on the platforms that all of us live on and many of us get our news on, that they don't get to decide exactly what we're going to see and delude us into thinking that that's organic. And so I'm open to different changes. I want to make sure that, I mean, you mentioned a constitutional amendment. Candidly, I'm not sure that that's a realistic possibility. But if there are regulations that fall within the parameters of existing constitutional rights, I am all ears and I am eager to pursue a path that actually regulates both social media and AI. Because we can't stick our head in the sand. We can't pretend like these aren't here, that these aren't having an impact. We can't pretend like AI won't come here. It's here. And this is part of what we have to build in this moment. An economy of the future that regulates the industries that are now impacting every single part of our lives. We've had instances, I'm going to go on a tangent here with AI. We've had instances where new technologies have disrupted individual industries, where they've made industries need fewer jobs, or they've made specific jobs obsolete entirely, right? In the early 20th century, the job of an elevator operator was skyrocketing. And then in the second half of the 20th century, people felt maybe a little bit more comfortable pressing buttons in the elevator themselves, and
That's the problem. People worry about more about what the person who is talking looks like and who presents the message. Instead of listening to the message, you're worried about whether she has a penis or not. She's a regular, ordinary female with a deep voice. Y'all really need to grow up. I swear to God, you guys really, really, really need to grow up. The message, you need to be listening to the message. When people are trying to forward your country or make your country move forward in a positive way, why are we worried about whether they got a dick or a penis in their pants? Man, I don't want to say that most of y'all are Republican who worry about that shit, but that don't even make no sense to me. Every person runs in the door talking about whether she got a penis in her pants. Worry about what the message is. Man.
the need for those elevator operators declined. This is the first time where we're going to see a new technology that transcends every industry and every sector, that transcends not only our economy, but also our relationships with one another. And if we don't wake up to all that is coming, not only understand it, but regulate it, well, I think we're going to find ourselves in 20 or 30 years really regretting that we didn't meet the moment and pass the necessary policies. So thank you. Sure, okay. Maybe two more questions. Steve, I saw.
Hi, Congresswoman. You've talked about today, every podcast you're ever on, you talk about talking with people from the other side.
You men are unserious. You're unserious about the world.
There would be no.
And then they want to lead the world, but they're unserious about the world. Serious?
On the other side of the aisle.
That's a great question. I'm gonna answer in three parts. Two will be examples from the Delaware State Senate, and one will be Congress, because I recognize Congress is very different than the Delaware State Senate, and I don't want to pretend like the Delaware State Senate's a perfect analog for the United States House of Representatives. I wish it were.
Hey guys.
But
you only got two more questions, guys.
When I got elected to the Delaware State Senate to represent the 1st Senate District, I ran that campaign saying my priority is going to be passing paid family and medical leave. And I had a lot of people, including a lot of Democrats, say, good luck with that. That's never going to happen. Delaware is too cautious. Delaware doesn't do that kind of stuff. And if you do get it done, it'll take a decade or more. And I decided that I was not going to take no or wait as an answer. I wrote a bill, I introduced a bill, and I traveled all over this state. I met with everyone, people who agreed.
Mind reader, get your ass out of my chat. You brought your ass here without me saying a word. Now you crashing out. You dummy. Get out of my chat. I hate dumb people.
Agreed with my bill, people who were open to it but had concerns, and people who thought that it would be the end of our society. And I know that often one of the easiest ways to
Yeah,
say
you
we're
hit
gonna
that
make
door.
progress
For real,
is
for
to
real. Hit
complain
that
about
door.
process. Right? People don't want to have to argue on the merits of a policy. Frankly, a policy like paid leave that's supported by almost 90% of Delawareans and Americans that every other industrialized nation has. And I thought, I'm not going to give them an opportunity to complain about process. I'm going to go everywhere and talk to everyone. And in some cases, I talked to people and they gave me some good ideas and we incorporated them. In other instances, I talked to people and maybe I didn't love their ideas, but I thought, you know what? This is an important coalition partner that we can bring on and maybe increase the chance of passage, so I'll compromise. In other instances, we were at an impasse. We
What is a transvestite?
disagreed agreeably. But the folks who disagreed with me still disagreed with me, but they understood that I had heard and considered their concerns. And because of that process, because I simply showed up and listened to people, my values call on me to affirm the dignity of every person, to respect every person. The simplest way to do that, the foundational way of doing that, is just showing up and listening. Because of that, we were able to amass a coalition in support of that bill, the largest expansion of the social safety net in modern state history, that ranged from the AFL-CIO to the State Chamber of Commerce. And we were able to pass it with bipartisan support, not in 10 years, not in 5 years, but in one single year. And in January of this coming year, Delaware workers across the state will finally have paid family and medical leave. Second example. I have been very thoughtful about when I lean in on issues that many people expect me.
They wonder why their party is failing. They're worrying about gender. I get the point, but every conversation you got to lead with, are they gay? Do they do X, Y, and Z? Every conversation, y'all run into the her name is Sarah McBride. She hosts the town hall. Sarah McBride, the one of the few states that has paid family and medical leave. She's one of the congresswomen who got that for her state. So she's doing her town hall, trying to see if she can promote other people to get to help save the Medicare bill.
To solely focus on. I'm proud of who I am, but I'm working on all of the issues that matter, including equality for my LGBTQ constituents. But when I was in the state Senate in June of 2023, I was the prime sponsor in the state Senate of a bill that banned the LGBTQ panic defense in our state. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is basically a defense that's been used in states across this country that says that a perpetrator's violence against an LGBTQ person is understandable and less deserving of consequence because the person who committed the violence, when they realized the person in front of them was LGBTQ, was essentially driven to a temporary state of insanity.
See, that's the whole point is it doesn't matter where the message comes from. You take the message, internalize the message, figure out how it applies to you, and keep going. Why are you worried about whether it's a man or a woman? We're not worried about that. We're worried about what the message is.
And this is a defense that's been used successfully and unsuccessfully in state courts across the country and courts around the world. Some cases people get off, some cases people get reduced sentences for that violence against an LGBTQ person. And a number of states had passed bills.
Oh, stop. Don't crash out. Don't crash out in the chat, Jim Thomas. Stop crashing.
Bills banning it in their state
Mel
courts. And Delaware
Bellable.
was considering
Stop
a similar
crashing.
bill. It had passed the state house on fairly partisan lines, and it was coming over to us in the state Senate. And I had just a couple of days before announced my campaign for Congress. And as folks might be able to expect, that received a lot of feedback. A lot of it was very positive, but some of it not so positive. And because of that not so positive feedback, we had to have what we usually don't have on the floor of the state Senate, which is we had to have police on the floor. And with that police presence visible, with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle understanding why it was there, I stood up. I explained why this bill was important to me and to my constituents, and I paused. And I waited for my Republican colleagues to stand up and to say, at best, this is a solution in search of a problem, and at worst, that this is understandable, if not justifiable, violence. And that's not what they said. Because to a person, every single Republican in that chamber on that day, with that police presence right behind them, they stood up. They not only affirmed the dignity of LGBTQ lives, they not only validated the fear that many LGBTQ people live with every single day. They not only declared that they would vote for that bill, but for perhaps the first time ever in this country's history, every single Republican in a legislative chamber stood up and asked to be added as co-sponsors to that bill. And look, saying that there's no excuse for violence against anyone in our society is a pretty low bar. It's like quite literally the bare minimum. But what happened in that moment was so much more profound than the policy, because what happened in that moment is that my colleagues, who I had gotten to know, who I had worked with on a whole host of bills, they realized in that moment that the political is fundamentally personal.
Natural Care, I
The
say thank
issue
you
that
for
we
the
were
$5.
moving
Hit the like
was
button,
about the
share,
real people
subscribe.
who
Thank
they
you.
know and
Thank
they
you.
care about and they respect.
This is her last question,
And
guys.
you can't undo that synaptic connection once it occurs. You can't undo that connection between policy and people once it exists. And it's how so much change in this.
I want a congressman, woman, LGBT. I don't care what they are. I want them to move the country forward. Whether it's a man, woman, beast, or whatever, I want them to move legislation forward for other people in the country. And when the person does that, I'm gonna acknowledge that they did a good thing for the people of this country. How many people do you know that it actually says, let me do something for my constituents, let me do something for our people, and then you actually get to hear them speak about why they did what they did? I'm saying, I don't care about the messenger or what they look like. Is this person trying to move people forward and have a better, productive life? This is why I like politics, because I like our representatives that do things for the people. Okay? And not worry about whether, and this is a part of the reason why I am a Democrat, is because regardless of what you are, if you move the country forward in a positive way, why am I talking about your gender? I don't care about your gender. I care about your agenda and what your agenda does to help move people forward. Okay?
This country has been forged through quiet, small, almost invisible moments of recognition, of hearts changing just a little, of minds changing just a little. But heart by heart, mind by mind, issue by issue, we have rendered prejudices of the past to be considered unjust, like they should be. We've built a civil rights system in this country that allows people to participate in our society, to vote, to go to a restaurant, to go to school. Yes, it is under attack. But with public opinion, if we change hearts and minds, nothing is impossible, and certainly without it, nothing is sustainable. And the final example that I'll give from Congress is, I mentioned I've introduced a lot of bills this Congress. Essentially, all of them are bipartisan. There were a lot of people when I got into Congress who are professional provocateurs who wanted to use my service as a really pitiful and obvious attempt to get attention for themselves. They were trying to use me as a political pawn in order to do that, and I just refused to be used as a political pawn and didn't take their bait. And not only have those folks, for the most part, moved on to easier highs to get attention, but I actually had a number of colleagues, and I won't say their names, but I had a number of colleagues on the other side of the aisle who came up to me, who not only came up to me to apologize for how a handful of people were welcoming me to Congress, but to say, let's find opportunities to work together to show people that not everyone is like that. And while I won't name those names, like I said, I've been able to introduce more bipartisan bills than any other freshman. And in part,
introduced more bipartisan bills than any freshman. Reaching across the aisle, this is what we want in our politics. People like this in our politics, reaching across the aisle.
it's been a byproduct of the fact that those professional provocateurs came after me. So serves them right, bless their hearts. I'm going to continue to make lemonade out of lemons. All right, one more question. Right here, yeah. Oh, my good friend.
Hey, Sarah, I'd like to bring it back to affordability.
Yeah,
And this would be kind of a good ending
Great.
question, I think. I want to talk about the sort of the intersection between affordability, the crisis of hope,
yeah.
and actually speak to your strengths, because just as you ended your introductory comments on the slingshot moment, I've borrowed that expression from you
Great.
multiple times in helping people deal with anxiety about what's going on in our world right now, in our country right now. I have the privilege of working volunteering, not working, but volunteering in a food pantry once a week. And I deal constantly with people who are in crisis, who are scared, who are in some cases angry, but usually it's not anger, it's more just anxiety, confusion, all of those emotions all wrapped up in. And in our particular group of food pantries, 23% more people have been served just in October versus September. The numbers are just going through the roof. Give me a positive message to share with these people, because I'm the outside person. I'm the person that has developed.
Make sure you guys hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Please and thank you. We have content throughout the day, videos, some live, some not. We just happen to have a live in this live town hall. I appreciate the sub. I appreciate the like. Please hit the like button.
The relationship
Please.
with these people. These are my friends. These are my neighbors. These are, these are my community. And I see the pain, and it's real and it's tangible. So give me something. Did I say it was an easy one?
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't even realize this when I called on you before I thought about it, but what a perfect final person to ask a question, because Lynn actually was the first person whose door I knocked on when I was running for state senate in 2019. And we both figured out that we both love A Muppet's Christmas.
Yeah, but you cannot, Happy Troll, you cannot legislate morally in this country. It is too many people, it is too many faiths to legislate morally and religiously. We don't have a theocracy, so we can't rule religiously. We cannot rule morally because your morals are different from mine. That's why church and state, the whole church and state being separate, is the reason why our country has worked the way it has, because you have to leave church out of legislation. Nobody wants to rule morally because you can't. It's 350 million people in this country. Your morality and religion is different from mine. So therefore, we cannot rule with those.
Carol. And then I gave her my number, so every Christmas season, we text one another when we watch our annual Muppets Christmas Carols showings, respectively. So thank you for being the first door that I knocked on, and now the last question of this town hall. And thank you, because I think
what you mean it's not a good thing, Black America. That's the only way that this country works. That's the only way this country works, is if you rule legislatively. You cannot rule morally, and you cannot rule religiously. It just does not work. It's too diverse of a country. I don't know why you all think you're supposed to impose your morality and your religion on other people. You cannot do that. You cannot say I'm going to rule as a Christian and I'm not a Christian, because your Christian rules and tenets do not apply to me. So therefore you cannot rule with your tenets of Christianity or morality. We have to agree on things. We cannot agree on your religion being the dominant one, and I have to do the things that you want someone to do because your religion says that. This is freedom of religion in this country. That's the way this country was built.
that's part of it. You know,
When you rule by religion, it's called theocracy. We do not have a theocracy here.
And almost every month, I talk with, or people on my team talk with folks from the Food Bank of Delaware. And the need is great. It is getting greater. And while it is getting greater, the federal government is pulling the rug out from underneath a lot of people in this moment. Whether it was the intentional choice of cruelty during the shutdown to throw SNAP into chaos, or the big ugly bill, which included the largest cut to SNAP in history. Prices are going up and supports are going away. And so it's a really scary time.
Yes.
And in addition to the slingshot theory, I think for folks who are scared, two things are necessary. The first is we have to bear witness to their pain. And I will just step back, because I think one of the problems in our politics right now is that we are in this fierce competition for pain when there is enough pain to go around. And we validate only some pain. We tend to diminish the pain of people who think and vote differently than we do.
Right.
Both
exactly.
Right? One side says, what do you know about pain? My pain is real. And the other side says, what do you know about pain? My pain is real. And any therapist will tell you that the first step to healing is to have your pain seen and validated. And I think all of us individually and collectively in our politics need to do a better job of recognizing that people don't have to be right for what they're facing to be wrong, and they don't have to be right for us to try to right that wrong. And whether it's individually showing up or in our politics, all of us have to do a better job of seeing people's pain and validating it. The second is we do have to show up. People need to know that they're not alone in this moment.
I think only you Republicans, only you goofy Republicans run into the damn chat talking about whether this is a man or a woman. Only you goofy people from the MAGA side. Only.
And these nonprofits and volunteering is not going to be able to fill the hole that only the federal government can.
Hold on. HQ, you have been pushing moralistic. When the hell have I been pushing moralistic views? I ain't been pushing jack shit all week. Moralistically. What are you talking about?
Truly fill the hole that is being created in part by the federal government in this moment. But it's the least we can do. And it's what we should do in a state of neighbors. And I think what you're doing by showing up and being present and showing them with your own body that they are not alone, it doesn't solve everything, and it won't necessarily be a light bulb moment for them, but it might be just enough for them to continue to persevere and get through the day. And then I just want to step back and close on this, because I know that a lot of times folks see what is going on in the news. They see the recklessness and the violations of the rule of law, the corruption, the risk for our government, our constitution, our democracy in this moment, and they go, how on earth can you talk about affordability? Democracy is crumbling around us. Why are you talking about the price of groceries? And one of the things I know and I see and I hear is that for the vast majority of people who can't make ends meet every single day, they don't have the luxury of caring about everything else. They might not have the time to come to a space like this all the time. They might not be posting on social media about politics all the time because they are just trying to survive. We owe it to them to solve their problems. One, because that is our responsibility as elected officials. It is the possibility and potential of government to create big solutions for big problems. But on top of that, if you are here and you care about the survival of our democracy, we have to
Number one, y'all be coming up with some shit. Number one, what is it? Who is this? Madison. Yeah, Madison. In the first, oh Jesus! In the First Amendment, it does say something about prohibiting people from exercising or doing anything regarding the church or state. Those exact words don't necessarily have to be directly related to church and state. I think it's something to do with no laws respecting church. I mean, establishing a religion, something like that. You got to go read Amendment number 1. It does say something about that. Number 2, Trump and Epstein. How is that? How am I forcing my moral view on anybody? I specifically know that I have never said you're a X, Y, and Z religiously. 2, we all live in this collective. Most people in this timeline, this 347 million Americans, the vast majority of us believe morally having sex with a child under the age of 17 is immoral. The vast majority of us believe that. That's not my moral view. That's the society's moral view. That is what our society as a collective have decided is an immoral act. It's not my thought of immoral act. It is the society, the collective as a whole, sort of our social contract where we decide this is the moral thing. And most people believe that is the truth, that having relations with someone under 17 is considered immoral. So it's not me pushing any kind of moral or immoral thing on anyone. It's a collective conscience where we all know that our society accepts someone under 17 having sex with someone under 17 isn't a moral act. It's not my thought. That's the collective thought.
understand that economic opportunity is the foundation upon which freedom flourishes. When I gave my first speech on the floor of the House of Representatives, I thought long and hard about what do I want to say? What do I want to talk about? And I kept coming back to a speech that had been delivered in that same well in 1944 by Franklin Roosevelt. As World War II raged, Franklin Roosevelt talked about how necessitous people are not free people. When you are hungry and out of a job, those are the things that dictatorships are made of. And all of us in this space, all of us who believe in democracy in this moment,
I hope y'all doing something while y'all listening. You know, this is amazing background noise. You can do all kinds of things while you're listening. And once you're listening, it seeps into your consciousness, some of these things. You don't necessarily have to actually look at it. You can listen to the content and then it seeps into your consciousness. Wait a minute, I heard that the other day, blah, blah, blah. This is how I like to do. And people, you know, will absorb some of the things that they hear, right? And maybe they'll hear something that'll challenge them, and then they'll change their mind about what they understand.
all of us who recognize that this American experiment that started 250 years ago, who realize that that experiment is at risk in this moment, we need to recognize that the only way to save the American experiment is to make the American dream affordable and accessible for everyone. That's why I will continue to focus on it, because my constituents demand it, they need it, but also because of the future of our country requires it. So thank you all very much. It's an honor to be with you today. It's a privilege to be with you in this fight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. For today. Hey guys. A town hall for today, you know, saying as how we normally don't have town halls. I mean, I like to see what the constituents are talking about. I would have ran for something, except I missed the deadline. I would have ran for something, but I missed the deadline. So I guess I had to wait until next year. But it is what it is. So this is, you know, we had a town hall with Jasmine Crockett. Their town hall was earlier, but I'm not able to get that town hall, that stream for that town hall. What are we talking? 30 says the age of consent is 16. Black America, why do you come in the chat promoting men having sex with 16-year-old girls? Why do you come in the chat? Because that could be the only reason why you would be caping so hard for laws. There's a difference between the legal right to have sex and the moral right to have sex. Is it legally right to have sex with a 16-year-old? Legally, it might be legal in some states. But morally, is it morally right to have sex with someone who's under the age of 16? Look, I'm going to start looking at you funny, Black America, because you over here caping for people who trying to have sex with these young girls. No, we cannot promote. We are not promoting. We're not on that type of time. We are not promoting them younger and younger and younger. Just because this Epstein stuff is in the news does not mean yes, it is. When you come over here saying, oh, it's legal to have sex at 16, that means you're promoting it. You're promoting it and saying it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay for an adult male to have sex with a 16-year-old girl. It's not okay. I'm just saying, somebody who thinks like I think, put a 1 in the chat. Who thinks the same way that I do? That it's not a moral thing. It's not the moral thing to have sex with a girl that's 16 years old. Put a 1 in the chat who thinks like I do. I'm just asking. Okay? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I don't know. But I don't think a 30-year-old man or 27-year-old man trying to have sex with a 16-year-old girl is morally okay. It could be as legal as you want it to be. It is not morally okay. Okay? I'm saying there's billions of people in this country. Why are we worried? Why are we having a conversation about a 16-year-old girl when there's 20-year-old girls? And, I even look at the 18-year-old with the 30-year-old. I look at them funny that way. But I really look at you funny if you are a man and you're promoting 16-year. We're not saying that you do it. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is when you walk in the door and say, "Oh no, y'all being outraged for no reason. 16-year-old is legal in Tennessee. It's legal in Tennessee." Why would you come over here and say that a 16-year-old is legal to have sex with them if you're not doing promotion of some type? So I'm saying, stop promoting having 16-year-old sex with 16-year-olds. That's the way it's coming across. It's coming across really, really bad. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Not saying nothing else. That's all I'm saying. It sounds horrible when you put it that way. When there's a world full of adult women all over this country, a different country, every other country, all over this country, that you wouldn't even, there shouldn't even be a thought. We should never even have that conversation. When you're over the age of, I can understand if you're a man that's 20 and she's 16, and I'm, hey, y'all within time of each other. But when you're a man that's over the age of 30 and you're saying, "Oh, 16 is legal, why y'all X, Y, and Z?" No. We're not accepting that as normal. We just ain't doing that, because I can't wrap my head around. We can barely wrap our head around the fact that we have Epstein files and we have adult rich men who are on tape, videotape, exploiting kids without the regular, normal, everyday, average men on the street saying, "She's 16, so it's legal." No, we don't want to hear that from you. Okay. It's considered creepy, pedophile, however people want to put it, however people want to do it. But that's off limits. Kids are off limits, because just because they have a body and they appear to be grown doesn't mean that they are grown. He did not shower with his child, John Stevens. Stop it. Y'all promoting that stuff. And your president is already on record as being friends with this person. So we're going to stick to that. Oh, okay, I meant to show y'all one more thing. Hold on. Hello, everybody. I meant to show you everything. Something else, right? Hold on. What the hell is going on with the, oh shit, I got the wrong thing. Sorry, y'all. Here we go. Show. Where's it at? Oh. Here we go. Let's go. Hey.
News. Venezuela has declared war on the United States and is ready to enter the battlefield with full preparations. Military exercises are taking place, and air defense systems across the country have been put on alert. Basically, Venezuela says these preparations began when a U.S. force reached the Caribbean region of Latin America. United States has deployed B-1 bombers and F-35 jets to the Caribbean Sea. Venezuela is said to be the Latin American country with the most advanced missile and technology capabilities, and the U.S. should not take it lightly or expect to easily dominate it. Venezuela has also deployed S-300 VM long-range systems and Buk M2 systems. The Buk M2 is Russian technology.
The problem is we're starting to ramp up these clips that I got. These clips I got. I'm sorry. The clips that I have are from the last week. These are this week's clips regarding Venezuela. Couple hours from Venezuelan activity. So they're ramping up the activity in Venezuela. So we will be at war. Well, Putin is there too. So we have a problem. Putin has deployed some of his people.
Medium-range defensive system.
refuses to step down and remains defiant.
Allá el norte imperialista.
Let the imperialist North keep its words and threats. Let them keep their criminal ambitions to colonize and conquer our America.
Have they talked to President Maduro of Venezuela yet, or are you still open to that?
He wants to talk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm open to talk. I talk to everybody.
A new Fox News poll shows American voters are split on the military using deadly force against alleged Venezuelan drug boats. Since early September, there have been more than 20 strikes against these vessels. The White House says the president continues to review potential military actions.
The president promised to take on the cartels. He has taken unprecedented action to do so, and he has left additional options at his disposal on the table.
This week, the State Department moved to designate another Venezuelan cartel a foreign terrorist organization, potentially giving the Trump administration the legal authority to conduct strikes inside the country.
We have breaking news right now. The Trump administration has made the decision to attack inside Venezuela, officially striking on Venezuelan territory. The strikes haven't happened just yet, but they could come any minute now, according to the Miami Herald. We'll see what happens over the next several hours and days. The targets will specifically be military installations throughout Venezuela. It's unclear whether or not Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro is a target of these strikes. We also don't exactly know when these strikes are going to happen. What we do know, however, is this would be an act of war, but the Trump administration does not believe that it has to go to Congress to get a declaration of war, because we are striking sovereign territory here, even if the Trump administration does not believe Nicolas Maduro is a legitimate leader. And it comes at the same time the Department of Defense has struck and killed several dozen individuals in the Caribbean and in the Pacific on these so-called drug cartel boats. But yesterday, the DoD told Congress that it doesn't actually know who it killed. So here we go. Spread the word. I'll provide you more updates as we get more information. No strikes yet, but probably soon. Follow along for more.
Breaking news. Did the U.S. attack Venezuela? A massive explosion and blaze struck the Petrocedeño crude upgrader in eastern Venezuela on Wednesday, November 19th, marking the second major incident at the critical facility this month and highlighting the fragile state of the country's oil infrastructure. The explosion occurred in the afternoon at the Jose Antonio Anzoátegui petrochemical complex, located in the heart of Venezuela's Orinoco Belt. According to sources cited by Reuters and local media, the blast ignited near the facility's distillation tower. The fire may have spread to a nearby naphtha plant, raising fears of a cascading emergency. Emergency teams from the state oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela, which operates the project, quickly launched a large-scale evacuation of personnel. Ambulances were seen rushing to the complex, though officials have not yet confirmed any injuries or fatalities. President Nicolas Maduro has blamed the incident on the United States and the CIA, but so far Washington has not issued any statement regarding the explosion.
The U.S. has been striking boats, leaving Venezuela, some of them traveling close to Trinidad, and killing people who the U.S. say are drug dealers, but they have provided no evidence whatsoever that they actually are.
I would like to believe that if a decision was taken to strike vessels, that decision was based on sound, reliable intelligence for someone to then decide, okay, we are 100% certain.
Do you believe they were 100% certain?
I don't think so.
We've been seeing the human impact here in Trinidad. I've met people who saw a body wash up on the shore of a Venezuelan who will never be identified.
Yeah, I saw the body coming in.
It's horrific, isn't it?
This is someone's life. It could be any one of us.
I met a Trinidadian family whose loved one was killed in one of the strikes.
What all they're doing is wrong and it needs to stop because it's not stopping.
The US says they are entitled to do this because they have deemed drug cartels terrorists. International law experts disagree. Many think this is all about regime change that Donald Trump would like to see in Venezuela.
Did you know that it takes 24 days to get from Florida to Saudi Arabia on a tanker? And did you know that it only takes 4 days to get from Florida to Venezuela? And did you know that Venezuela has way more oil than Saudi Arabia? Venezuela has about 304 billion barrels in reserves. And did you know that the reason that we went to war in Iraq was kind of the same reason that we're going to war now? It was weapons of mass destruction. But I've heard everything. I've heard cartels. I've heard they sold enriched uranium to Iran. I've heard all the bullshit, but I know what it has to do with having a foothold in South Latin America. That's what it has to do with. And the distance it takes to get our oil. Because if oil's a hop, skip, and a jump across a pond, well, then why should we go across the ocean? See, they might have you fooled in thinking that this is about freedom and all this it's bullshit. See, the reason that we went over to Iraq was not because of weapons of mass destruction. It had to do with Halliburton and Dick Cheney being the vice president. This has to do with oil money, and they'll get it.
All right, so President Trump has announced that he authorized the CIA to begin covert action in Venezuela. Well, as a former CIA officer, I don't know that I would appreciate a public service announcement about that. That's not how we tend to work. It does put CIA officers potentially at a heightened state of danger. Typically, I think he's doing this obviously to send a message to Maduro that the CIA will come in, lay a groundwork for a war or a ground invasion, because honestly, that's how CIA has operated in the past. Just, I don't appreciate it putting people at risk. That's just sort of how I feel. But I wanted to talk more about why he is able to conduct some of these strikes out in the ocean, out in the Caribbean primarily. You can agree or disagree with him. I'm just explaining sort of probably the reasoning that he is using to do this. So you may or may not know that Trump has placed a lot of drug cartel networks on the FTO, or Foreign Terrorist Organization list. That's different. Other administrations actually have not done that. So when you place them on the FTO list, typically the president does not have to go back to Congress to ask for a declaration of war. And that is back from 2001, the AUMF, the authorization for the use of military force. That was for Al-Qaeda, sort of in the wake of 9/11. But that has been used by multiple different administrations against the Taliban, the Houthis, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, ISIS. I mean, you name it, all these different groups that are on there. We don't declare war to fight against them. So since, his time as being president, he has put more people on the FTO list than in the past 10 years combined. So there's a lot of groups on there that I think we just don't realize and don't talk about. Groups like, I think y'all know, Tren de Aragua, Mara Salvatrucha, the Sinaloa cartel, Zetas. I could just keep going. And Secretary of State Rubio is wanting to add the Cartel de las Solas. And that is a cartel in Venezuela as well. So they're trying to add all of these groups. So the president has these inherent self-defense powers that renders a formal declaration of war unnecessary. Now, we can agree or disagree with how he's going about that, and everyone is free to do whatever, and what I think doesn't necessarily matter. But I just wanted to explain to you this AUMF against non-state actors. If we are acting against the state as a whole, then yes, but they have been very careful to act against these cartels and not the state. So going into Venezuela for the sole reason of taking out Maduro would be acting against the state. And so that would be a little bit different.
All right, for all you ignorant people out there that are saying that the U.S. is just going into Venezuela because of its oil, let me enlighten you. First off, my parents are Venezuelan. I grew up in Venezuela as a kid. I lived there for about 8 years. Most of my family lives out there, cousins, uncles, extended family. I've gone back to visit, very aware of what the situation is like in Venezuela under the Maduro regime. And for everybody who's thinking, well, the U.S. is just making up this whole thing about drug trafficking so that they have an excuse to go in. Not true. In Venezuela, it's been known for years, maybe even decades, that this is a narco regime and that they make money through organized drug trafficking. The other thing you should know is that nobody in the world, except for maybe China, Russia, and Iran, recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. He stole an election, blatantly. There's proof, overwhelming proof that he stole it. And no country really recognizes him as the legitimate leader, including the United States. But here's the craziest part. Maduro actually offered the United States a majority stake for its oil reserves, meaning pretty much free access to oil. And on top of that, most of its natural resources, of which Venezuela has a ton of, okay? And the United States said no. The people of Venezuela have been oppressed for over 2 decades. There are people that have been detained for years, tortured. This is a narco government, essentially, that needs to be removed. This is needed. This is a good thing for Venezuela, and it's not about oil. So,
Well, I want to talk about something for a minute because I keep getting messages about this little Venezuela play. Yes, some people seem to believe that we're invading Venezuela because of the fentanyl, the drugs, dear, and we already know this is not true. You see, the intel tells us so. The intel, not just from the US of A, but all across the globe, shows that the fentanyl is not coming out of Venezuela, dear. And if you're one of these people who believe the surface level play, that we're just trying to get the oil and their minerals too, yes, now we all know, and if you don't know, I'm fixing to tell you so, Venezuela has some of the largest oil reserves on the planet, dear. And a lot of minerals there. So a lot of you seem to think this Venezuelan play is to force Maduro into handing over his oil reserves and his minerals too. But that's not true. You see, even the orange dude was asked directly because a journalist did due diligence on this and found out that Maduro had already offered Daddy the entirety of Venezuela's oil reserves, baby, and a lot of control over the minerals there.
I want to give you some breaking news into the Don Lemon Show newsroom. According to a source, there are 4 B-52 bombers that are en route to Venezuela. There's also a report out there on social media that says that these 4 U.S. Air Force B-52H Stratoforus bombers are heading towards the Gulf of Mexico, with flight trackers showing that 2 bomber barons from Minot AFB, or Air Force Base in North Dakota, leading the pack. Here's the interesting thing. People have been concerned about the possibility of a massive military buildup in the Caribbean, sparking the speculation that the U.S. is now engaged in the latest chapter of direct intervention in Latin America. The president walked that back, saying that Washington was just, erring on the side of caution, and that this was counter narcotics operations that were going on. Okay, we'll see what happens with that. But here is the deal. This is what it costs to fly a B-52 bomber. $71,000 an hour. That's roughly $300,000 per hour for 4 of them. 6.37 hours of flight time from Fargo to Venezuela. 2-hour training or mission bombing. And then 6.37 hours back. So 14.74 total hours. That's the estimated hours here. Times 4 planes at $71,000 equals $4.186 million. According to the source, we don't usually drop money like that on a training mission. So we'll see what's happening with these, according to a source, 4 B-52 bombers heading towards Venezuela, especially since we know the controversy around blowing up the boats that the Trump administration is getting. Is this an escalation in that? What exactly is this? More details coming on the Don Lemon Show. Stand by for news.
Massive news coming out of the country of Venezuela. They have decided to cut ties with many other nations in South America. Essentially what's going on, Venezuela has been questioned by many nations, to include the United States, as far as the validity of their election process and who won the elections. You can pause right here to read the entire statement from Venezuela, but essentially down here, the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, faced with this disastrous precedent that threatens our national sovereignty, decides to withdraw all diplomatic personnel from missions in Argentina, Chile, Costa Rica, Peru, Panama, the Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. At the same time, demand that these governments immediately withdraw their representatives from Venezuelan territory. Which means we are seeing the classic create your own hermit kingdom, kick out any sort of foreign entities that can influence anything or question your nation and your government, kick them all out. Unfortunately for the people of Venezuela, this makes things even worse, even more unstable than they already are, and the whole world is now questioning and watching Venezuela.
Venezuela is already invaded. As U.S. military pressure on Nicolás Maduro's government continues to escalate, Several analysts warn about the possibility of an American intervention in Venezuela. The skepticism is justified. Military operations in other countries carried by the U.S. have been, on some occasions, disastrous. But that framing misses the essential truth. Venezuela has already been invaded. Cuba's presence is the most entrenched. Investigations by Reuters and others have shown that Cuba has helped Venezuela restructure its intelligence apparatus by training Venezuelan agents and embedding Cuban advisors within my country's military intelligence office. By doing so, they have shifted the unit's mission away from external threats toward internal surveillance of the armed forces and opposition. And as Joe Suarez shows in his book Leviathan, Cuba has also sent torturers to Venezuela to train my country's militaries in persecution and repression strategies. Cuba has also sent doctors to Venezuela to participate in Chavez and Maduro-led social programs. This in exchange for extremely cheap oil for the island nation. While this sounds nice in theory, these doctors have also been paid for by the Venezuelan government, and their presence has severely limited the possibilities of doctors born and taught in Venezuela, which have been historically very skilled, to work in the public sector. What is often framed as solidarity should instead be understood as a form of extractive colonialism, with Cuba, of course, as our colonial overlord. China's role is more technocratic but still troublesome. Over the last 15 years, Beijing has secured tens of billions of dollars in oil-backed loans, exclusive access to strategic mineral zones, and highly preferential infrastructure contracts. In many of these projects, Chinese companies have brought a large number of their own workers, often exceeding the ratio permitted by Venezuelan labor law, and relegating Venezuelans to low-wage, low-skill positions.
I wonder, is Venezuela just a normal, everyday, average, is their cost of living or the way they live below par? Is that the reason why people want to get rid of their Meduso? I mean, does he steal all the money? Does this Meduso steal all the money and then the people don't get any? Are they living below poverty level? What is this country like? That's what I want to know. Why would you need to go in if this country is flush and the dictator is doing what he needs to do with the people? Why would we need to go in and do anything with it if he's such a good guy, this Meduso?
Many of the projects that have been agreed upon by the Venezuelan and Chinese governments, by the way, are still unfinished. Russia has also had a role in the tarnishing of Venezuela's sovereignty. Its supply of military equipment to Venezuela has provided stability to a dictatorship that does not represent the will of the people and allowed it to sow more fear among us,
Wow.
such a people. Reports also...
This is one of the passport bro places. That's one of the passport bro places where they like to go. No wonder they like, okay. Undermine the independence of... Okay, so he's a dictator.
Document the arrival of Russian private military contractors linked to Wagner to
human rights violations, severe economic crisis affecting the population, erosion of democratic institutions. Sounds like a wild place. Wild place to live. Food shortages. I just couldn't even imagine going somewhere where there's food shortages.
reinforce their security ring around Maduro. This while giving Russia's oil and gas company Rosneft preferential deals for joint exploitation ventures in Venezuelan soil.
Yeah, I'm tired of him talking.
Is Maduro for not leaving power when he should have.
The world just woke up to a geopolitical earthquake. Vladimir Putin is no longer fighting the West only in Ukraine. and now he's fortifying Venezuela right in America's backyard. In the last 48 hours, Russia has quietly expanded its military footprint in Venezuela. Not symbolic, strategic, not temporary, long-term. Russian military advisors, drone specialists, and air defense experts have begun setting up.
I thought Donald Trump got along with Putin. So why is Putin down in Venezuela helping the Venezuelan Maduro? Why is he down there helping Maduro when we're supposed to be allies with Putin? So we're not allies with Putin. Why is Trump always praising Putin if we're not allies with Putin? And he's not an amazing dictator. He's not putting his people first. What's going on and are we still getting the oil?
Joint training sites in Venezuela's armed forces. This isn't friendly cooperation. This is a defensive wall aimed straight at Washington. Russia is helping Caracas reboot its collapsed oil infrastructure. Why? To lock Venezuela even tighter into Moscow's orbit and to weaken America's influence over global energy routes. For the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis era, a major Russian-backed security zone is forming in the Western Hemisphere. Analysts say this is Putin's counterpunch. You come near Russia's borders, I'll come near yours. This isn't just diplomacy. This is just played on the edge of the...
Yeah, but Venezuela, Putin brought some ships and whatnot down there to stop the American people. Putin put some ships in place down there.
The world map. If this expands air bases, naval access, missile systems, then the US will face something it hasn't seen in decades. A Russian fortress rising in Latin America. If Putin turns Venezuela into a permanent outpost, then for the first time in generations, America won't just be watching Russia on a map, it'll be hearing Russia on its doorstep. This isn't a message, this isn't a warning. This is Putin planting a flag in the Western Hemisphere and daring the US to blink first. Because if this continues, the balance of power won't just shift, it will tilt so hard the entire hemisphere will feel the quake. The world isn't watching a standoff, we are watching the opening scene of a new global showdown. And Venezuela is the first domino.
Okay, so according to the Grok and the Google, well, let me see. What is Putin doing? What's the deal? Okay, so they got a strategic partnership, a treaty. Russia and Venezuela signed a strategic partnership in 2025. In 2025, which covers cooperation in energy, arms, diplomacy, joint opposition to sanctions. The agreement states the parties will promote balanced and stable long-term development of global energy markets. They have political support and public backing. Russia has publicly backed Venezuela in international forums, denounced the U.S. actions in the Caribbean, and affirmed support for Venezuelan sovereignty. Russian foreign ministry statements have called U.S. military deployments or pressure excessive when directed at Venezuela. They have military and security cooperation and arms sales. Documents and news reports indicate that Venezuela has asked for Russian military hardware, missiles, radars, upgraded equipment. Russia has taken part in military technical cooperation with Russia. And the treaty and discussions include collaboration in oil and gas exploration. So Russia is trying to move in with Venezuela. Oh, despite public support, analysts argue that Russia may not provide large-scale additional economic or military aid to Venezuela because Russia itself is constrained by war in Ukraine and other priorities. They cannot afford to go to war with America. The Strategic Partnership Treaty does not appear to include a formal military defense guarantee. Russia does not necessarily commit to deploying troops or fully intervening if Venezuela is attacked by the United States. Some of the requests by Venezuela are still under evaluation. Why is Russia doing this? Why is Russia helping Venezuela? The motives for Putin are geopolitical leverage. By supporting Venezuela, Russia gains influence in Latin America, challenges U.S. dominance in the hemisphere, and shows itself as a global actor beyond Europe. Venezuela has one of the largest oil and gas reserves. Russian firms have invested in Venezuelan oil. This cooperation helps both sides. Sanctions and alternative alliances. Venezuela is subject to many U.S. sanctions. By aligning with Russia, it helps create a counter block to Western sanction regimes, and Russia is interested in building relationships with countries that face U.S. pressure. Okay. So Putin ain't our friend. So why do Trump act like we friends with that man? What's going on? See? I wonder what's going on for real. It's some bullying. They trying to get the oil. United States is trying to get that oil. Instead of letting Russia come over here and get that oil, letting Russia be subject to the advantages of having the oil, Donald Trump is trying to put us in a position where we get that oil. So my thing is this: ain't Putin gonna look like a puss if we get allowed to push and shove Putin out of the way and get that oil from Venezuela? Wouldn't that make you mad? But then again, he's in war with Ukraine, so maybe he can't afford to go to war with us. So maybe he will just allow it to happen, but I doubt it very seriously. Yeah, I think because he helped. But see, here's the thing: does he have enough resources? Well, they got more ships and stuff than us, right? Russia got more ships and battlefield and all that kind of battle supplies and things like that more than us. So it might be up to them to do what they got to do. So let's keep our eye on Venezuela. Let's keep our eye on this war. Let's keep our eye on Donald Trump. Hell, Donald Trump done had a very busy week. Okay. Why do you think American businessmen are buying TikTok? I thought it was some Jewish guy. Trying to buy TikTok. Not Jewish guy. Israeli guy. Or something like that. Some weird combination of them. Anyway, yeah, they still going to censor what they want to censor. You know, they still going to tell people what they can and cannot do. It's still going to be one of those, right? Y'all hit the like and share and subscribe button, please, and thank you. We had this kind of content every day. We will be back this evening. Who knows what we're going to talk about? Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? But we will have more content later on. Please like, share, subscribe, do all those good things so you won't miss the content, And maybe we'll do a little bit of fighting. Yes, Russia has more military stuff than we do. Yes, they do. Russia does. They have more military stuff. I heard that out of Trump's mouth the other day. Then I looked it up. So they do have more stuff than we do. Russia does. Yeah. I don't know. Talk to your president. He's the one. Well, shit. Why am I bringing your president? I looked it up. They do have more stuff than we do. Y'all come back later on. Call back later on. We have more content. Probably around 9, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. I love to be up in the middle of the night. I love to do all that kind of shit. Yeah, you go look it up. Jeremy retard yourself. I just said your president, who is the retard, said it. So go talk to your president. Okay? Go talk to your president. Retard. Go talk to your president. I will see you all later. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. We will be back later. Who knows what we're going to be talking about?